So when we are talking about some possible future socialist system, how would we resolve the issue of central planning versus worker self-management? And what about the democracy in the economic sector?
It's a very difficult question. There is no recipe. We need central planning at the level of political power that is state, but we need also real progress of democratization, socialization through democratization. That is not only participation, but the people becoming really those who decide. Well, this is Yugoslavia had inaugurated the system of self-management, which was neither 100% good nor 100% mistake. It was a mixture, but it operated within a relatively small country with enormous inequalities between the regions, the republics, and with articulated to the global Yugoslavia moving more and more into the global European global market, and all that eroded the capacity of the self-management to become really a stage in the process of socialization. And that has been a very negative result of the process.
If we think about various anti-capitalist movements in the world, what do you think, for instance, about the struggles by Maoists, by Naxalites in India and in Nepal?
It's a revolutionary advance. The fact that an army of poor peasants, in the case of Nepal, is successful and brings down the monarchy, and that even if at the last minute the middle classes join it with restrictions, is a big victory. And it's something of which the Indian ruling class is very much afraid, because Nepal is very similar to many parts of India, and that the Naxalite movement of poor peasants under the Maoist flag has been continuing and going 1/3 of India. 1/3 of India means 300 million people. It's not a small part of the world, and could not be defeated throughout 40 years of struggle. And now they have the example of capacity of being victorious. It doesn't mean that the problem is solved. Maoists in Nepal are meeting enormous problems.
So what do you think, why is it that the Maoists in Nepal and India are not so big in in some imagination of the left in the world, but they're more concentrating on things like the movement in Chiapas in Mexico, for instance? Is it because they're perceived as some traditional?
I don't know, but India has always been very well followed by the radical left in all Asia and Africa. It's not the case for Latin America and Europe, because possibly of cultural reasons, but so it is. It has to be more known.
How would you comment on the developing of the socialism of the 21st century in Latin America, in Venezuela and Bolivia?
There have been revolutionary advances in Latin America, and I consider even the election of Lula as, in its time, as a revolutionary advance. And in different conditions, Chavez, Evo Morales, Correa, revolutionary advances. I don't call them revolutions, but the popular movements were strong enough to bring even something which is very scarce in history, an electoral victory.
So what do you think what do you think it is about Latin America that we had, for instance, in Bolivia and Venezuela and Chile with Allende, what is their, how could they manage to win? How could socialists manage to win in bourgeois, in liberal elections?
Each case has its explanation. There is nothing like Latin America. Latin America is just, if you are speaking of Europe, thinking that what we are saying about Croatia is correct for Sweden. It is not. Huh? So each case. In the case of Brazil, there was a convergence between three potent movements. One was the working class, social democrats, but real social democrats of the CUT, of the working class of São Paulo. The second dimension was the peasant movement of MST, poor peasants, Landes, and the third one was the favela people, poor people, through the liberation theology, basically. They converged. That was one picture. Another one, completely different, was Chavez. There was a very, very strong popular movement, and it had some reflection within the army. Part of the army was nationalist, patriot, not lackeys of the US, and which rejected the idea of repressing the people, and that created conditions for Chavez to be elected president. Bolivia is totally different. It's a country which is two countries. 2/3 of the people are Indian peasants on the highlands with tin mines, and 1/3 is European origin in lowlands with the major wealth of the country, which is oil and gas. Now, the genius of Evo Morales was that he created a unity of the peasant movement with the popular classes and a good part of the intelligentsia of the southern part, eastern part of Bolivian lowlands, and which created the conditions for an electoral victory. So each case is different.
So do you think that some kind of scenario like this is possible outside of Latin America, in some other parts of the world?
Yes, I think it's possible everywhere, but in very concrete different conditions.
Okay, and the last question, we saw that in 1968 the student movement had a big role in progressive demands, progressive movements, and now we see that students around the world are beginning to, their movements are getting stronger. What do you think that the role of the student movements can be in some bigger perspective?
First, I don't think that we can speak of the students' movement on a world scale as if it were the same from one country to another. 68 was basically a European, Western European even, movement of the youth, basically starting with the students, but the youth, which were tired of the so-called success of consumerism and so on. But it had all the limits and ambiguity of that revolt. Now we are in very different conditions, and I think that I hardly think that we can speak of the movement of any movement at global level like that. The youth in the world, or the women in the world, or the workers in the world, they are in very concrete different conditions.
Okay, Professor Amin,
thank you.